On the night before the wedding, my fiancée said she was going to attend a 10-men 1-woman bachelor party. When it came time for the games, she didn't even bother to pretend. She directly gave up and chose truth or dare. The punishment was to pick one person of the opposite sex and engage in a passionate kiss for 30 seconds. Even though her fiancé was right there, the woman chose her sworn brother, Bruno. The two of them kissed intensely for a full minute before finally letting go, clearly reluctant to separate. Before I could even say a word, the men looked at me provocatively. It's just a game. Julian isn't so petty that he can't handle this, right? The woman shot me a look full of disdain. Why even care about him? Forget a kiss. Even if I slept with someone here tonight, wouldn't he still show up on time to the wedding tomorrow? The crowd instantly burst into laughter. In the second round, the pointer landed squarely on me. I smiled. I choose dare. Then I turned and kissed the top-tier heiress of City A standing beside me. Chapter 1. Silence. A deafening silence. Everyone was stunned by the sudden twist. Mouth slightly open, eyes wide. He kissed her. He actually went through with it. Holy hell. Who did he kiss? The Mu family's eldest daughter. My God. Julian's lost his mind. He's absolutely lost his mind. Kissing Avery Mu right in front of Jane. Does he have a death wish? Jane's going to tear him apart. Hey, isn't Avery Bruno's goddess? Look at their expressions. Jane and Bruno's faces are green. Ha ha ha. Serves them right. That look on Bruno's face, priceless. Absolutely priceless. Quick, take photos. This is breaking news. The Han family's live-in son-in-law forcefully kissing Miss Mu in public. Camera flashes went wild. The sound of phones snapping pictures echoed non-stop. Screams, chatter, and whistles blended together as the scene completely spiraled out of control. Jane charged toward me like a madwoman, trying to pull me away. Are you insane? Julian, I'll kill you. Bruno's eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged lion. Julian, you dare touch her? Do you even know what you're doing? I looked at him coldly, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. It's just a game, isn't it? Young Master Bruno wouldn't be so petty that he can't handle it, right? I deliberately threw his own words right back at him. When Jane realized she couldn't pull me away, she immediately threw herself into Bruno's arms, crying loudly, Bruno, you have to stand up for me. He did it on purpose. He just wanted to humiliate me. Bruno wrapped his arm around Jane Han and glared at me viciously. Julian, you'd better know your place. You're nothing but a useless freeloader. If the Han family hadn't taken you in, you'd have starved to death on the streets long ago. I let out a scornful laugh. Bruno, stop acting tough just because you've got backing. You think I care about the Han family's lousy money? And you, Jane Han, don't think for a second that marrying you was me reaching above my station. This wedding is off. My words exploded through the crowd like a bomb. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. What did he say? He actually dares to call off the engagement. Is Julian out of his mind? The Han family has such great conditions, people would kill to marry in, and he's just throwing it away. Exactly. Who does he think he is? Without the Han family, he's nothing. Jane screamed hysterically, tears pouring down her face, whether from rage or humiliation. No one could tell. Julian, you dare. If you dare break off the engagement and make me lose face, I'll make sure you and your whole family die miserable deaths. I snorted and shoved Jane aside, the force making her stagger. When you kissed another man right in front of me, did you ever treat me like a human being? Jane, don't take yourself so seriously. You're the one who ruined your own reputation. You're just a live-in son-in-law. I can do whatever I want. How dare you compare yourself to me? Jane trembled with rage, pointing at me as she spewed nonsense with complete self-righteousness. Bruno stepped forward, blocking her, his gaze dark and menacing as he stared at me. Julian, you've gone too far. Apologize to Jane and Miss Mu immediately. Then get the hell out of here. Otherwise, don't blame me for not holding back. Not holding back. I raised an eyebrow and met his oppressive stare head-on. And how exactly does young Master Bruno plan to not hold back? Call the police? Accuse me of molesting Miss Avery? The sarcasm in my voice was undisguised. Everyone around us was dumbfounded. Had Julian taken the wrong medicine today? The usual simp who hovered around Jane, always submissive and obedient, how had he suddenly turned into a completely different person? Not only daring to kiss Avery, but even daring to confront Bruno head-on. Chapter 2. Julian, stop putting on an act. Jane hid behind Bruno as if she had finally found her backbone, her voice turning shrill again. You're nothing but a pathetic live-in son-in-law. Bruno will blacklist you across the entire industry. Get down on your knees and apologize to Avery. Apologize to Bruno. Otherwise I'll make sure you regret it. And forget about getting married tomorrow. That's right, Julian. Don't be so ungrateful. Someone eager to curry favor with Bruno Ku immediately chimed in. Is Boss Ku someone you can afford to offend? Hurry up and admit your mistake. Does he have a death wish? A useless live-in son-in-law daring to challenge Boss Koo. Miss Moo, please don't be angry. This man is just a lunatic. We'll throw him out right now. I looked at this group of so-called righteous people, at Jane's expression that looked as if she wanted to swallow me alive, at Bruno's smug, villainous face, and suddenly found it all unbearably ironic. 3 years. I had loved Jane desperately. For those 3 years, for her sake, I endured the label of a kept man, helped her handle business, ran cases, attended banquets, and managed every detail of her law firm with utmost care, afraid she might suffer even the slightest grievance. I remembered every late night spent carefully analyzing cases for her. I remembered using resources and connections she would never even have access to, all for her. And what did I get in return? Watching her passionately kiss another man in public, being pointed at and cursed as a useless coward. My heart thudded so hard it felt like it was about to burst out of my chest, mixing with the noisy chaos around me. Then, like ripples spreading out and fading, everything finally settled into calm. This marriage wasn't worth having anyway. Avery Moo had been standing quietly beside me the entire time, her gaze lowered, no one knowing what she was thinking. She then raised her head, her beautiful eyes sweeping over Jane and Bruno before finally landing on me, her look filled with complexity. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but I stopped her with a single gesture. Bruno took out his phone and said coldly, "Julian, I gave you a chance. Since you insist on courting death, don't blame me for being ruthless." With that, he dialed a number. "Hello, Manager Liam. This is Bruno. I'm in the presidential suite at Crown KTV. Someone here is harassing Miss Avery Moo." "Yes, the behavior is extremely inappropriate. Please bring security up to deal with it." After hanging up, Bruno looked at me as if I were already a dead man. A satisfied smile spread across Jane's face, as though she could already see me being dragged out by security like a dead dog. The onlookers shook their heads as well, convinced I was finished. Offending Boss Koo and causing trouble on his turf, if that wasn't suicide, what was? Boss Koo sure is impressive. I clapped my hands lightly, my tone still calm. "So just because you're a rich second-generation heir, you can do whatever you want?" Bruno Koo's voice turned icy. "Dealing with trash like you who doesn't know his place is more than enough." Soon, the KTV door was pushed open and a group of security guards in black uniforms rushed in aggressively. Leading them was a burly middle-aged man. "Boss Koo, Miss Moo, are you all right?" Manager Liam hurried over to Bruno Koo, bowing repeatedly. "It's him." Bruno pointed at me. "He harassed Miss Moo and even shoved my friend. Throw him out immediately, then call the police." "Yes, Boss Koo." Manager Liam responded and waved his hand at the guards. "Beat him out of here." Several guards immediately closed in on me. At that moment, a cool, pleasant yet unmistakably authoritative female voice rang out in the private room. "Stop." He kissed me, with my permission. It was Avery Moo. Silence. An even longer silence than before. The woman stepped forward, placing herself between me and the guards, her cold gaze sweeping over Manager Liam and the security team. Manager Liam froze mid-motion. The guards exchanged uneasy looks, not daring to move. Bruno and Jane were completely dumbfounded. "Miss Moo, you." Bruno frowned deeply, staring at Avery in confusion. Avery didn't look at him. Instead, she faced Manager Liam and said slowly and clearly, "Manager Liam, Mr. Julian's actions just now were with my consent. There was no harassment." "Ah, what?" Manager Liam was utterly stunned, looking at Avery, then at Bruno, completely at a loss. "Consent?" Jane screamed as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world. "Avery, are you insane? He's just a useless kept man, and you allowed him to kiss you. Who does he think he is? Who does he think he is?" Avery finally turned her gaze to Jane. The eyes that usually held a gentle smile were now sharp and icy. "And who do you think you are, Jane? A woman who kissed her adulterous lover in public despite being engaged, and you still have the nerve to shout here?" Jane was overwhelmed by Avery's presence, left speechless for a moment. Chapter 3. Avery ignored her and turned her gaze to Bruno Koo instead, a hint of mockery in her voice. "Boss Koo, what a display of power. Do you really think having a bit of money in your family means you can do whatever you want?" Bruno's expression instantly turned ugly. "Miss Moo, what do you mean by that? I'm doing this for your own good." For my own good." Avery cut him off, the corners of her lips lifting into a sarcastic smile. "Boss Koo, spare me your fake concern. What happens between Julian and me is none of your business. And also, keep your so-called sworn sister in check and teach her to mind her words. Otherwise, I don't mind letting her learn what consequences really look like." "You." Bruno was left speechless, his face alternating between green and white. He had never imagined this. He was, after all, a wealthy young master. Even if he couldn't compare to the Moo family, there were still plenty of dealings between their families. Yet Avery Mu showed him absolutely no respect, and all of it was for Julian, someone he had never even taken seriously. The surrounding crowd was completely petrified, their brains utterly short-circuited. Jane was both shocked and furious. She pointed straight at Avery. Avery, are you blind? You let this useless coward kiss you. Do you have no shame at all? A dignified Mu family heiress actually stooping so low as to mess around with trash like Julian. What? Does he lick you well? Or were you, Avery, dumped by the Chan family, left unwanted, forced to pick up someone else's garbage? Smack. A crisp, resounding slap cut off Jane's filthy rant. The one who struck her was Avery's personal bodyguard, Shadow. Shadow flicked his hand lightly, his gaze sharp as a blade. Jane, watch your mouth. Say one more slanderous word about Miss Mu, and I guarantee you'll be buried in lawsuits until you're completely bankrupt. Jane clutched her cheek, staring at Shadow in disbelief, then at the expressionless Avery. In the end, she shot me a venomous glare, the kind that wished she could tear me apart and swallow me whole. Fine, very fine. Bruno laughed in extreme anger, his eyes locked onto Avery. Avery, for the sake of something like this, you're really willing to fall out with me completely? Ah, fine. You think you have connections, don't I? I'm telling you right now, I know the Chan family's young master, Santiago Chan. Just you wait. In City A, if there was one family you absolutely could not afford to offend, it was the Chan family. The Chan family was a world-class dynasty with top elites spread across every industry worldwide. They kept a low profile, but with just a flick of a finger, they could plunge City A into chaos. Even the Mu family, currently a top-tier powerhouse in City A, had originally risen through one of the Chan family's branch companies. Bruno's voice carried a vicious edge as he stared hard at Avery, as if he were already picturing her panicking, lowering her head, and begging him for mercy. The Chan family. Santiago. Young Master Chan. Avery repeated the name. The anger on her face seemed to freeze mid-motion, and in her beautiful eyes appeared a trace of blankness. Almost instinctively, she turned her head and looked at me, dazed. The Chan family. Wasn't the Chan family's eldest young master actually? I smiled and shook my head. Looks like it was time to properly discipline that brat at home, spending his days hanging out with all kinds of shady friends. The people in the private room, who had just been intimidated into silence by Avery, now seemed to have found a new pillar to cling to once again. Bruno's confidence reignited everyone's enthusiasm for watching the drama unfold. Did you hear that? Boss Ku knows young Master Santiago Chan. That's the Chan family. Even the Mu family can't afford to offend them. Speaking of which, didn't Avery get dumped by the Chan family not long ago? This is getting good. Ha ha ha. Julian is finished. Avery is finished too. Offending Boss Ku for a useless nobody. She's unbelievably stupid. Avery, feeling scared now. It's not too late to apologize. Jane looked as if she'd been injected with adrenaline. The humiliation of being slapped by Shadow moments earlier was instantly replaced by malicious delight. She shrieked. Avery, stop pretending to be stupid. Bruno knows people from the Chan family. Crushing you would be as easy as crushing an ant. Kneel down right now and apologize to Bruno and me. Maybe Boss Ku will be kind enough to put in a good word for you. Otherwise, just wait for the Mu family to go bankrupt. As for that useless Julian, her venomous gaze shifted to me. Trash like you should crawl back into the gutter where you belong. Seeing Avery's blank expression, Bruno felt much more at ease. Assuming she'd been scared senseless, a cold curve lifted the corner of his mouth. He took out his phone and, deliberately slowing his movements, dialed the number he believed could decide Avery's fate, right in front of everyone. Hello, Brother Chan. It's me, Bruno. He intentionally raised his voice so everyone in the private room could hear clearly. Yes, sorry to bother you. It's like this. I'm in the presidential suite at Crown KTV and ran into a bit of trouble. Avery from the Mu subsidiary under your company is being a little unruly. For the sake of a live-in son-in-law, she publicly embarrassed me and even allowed that guy to harass my friend. What do you think about this? As he spoke, Bruno shot a provocative glance at Avery and me. He deliberately paused, giving the other side time to process. What? That live-in son-in-law is named Julian? Yes, that's right. Do you know him? The private room fell dead silent. Only the faint, low, indistinct voice from Bruno's phone could be heard. Everyone held their breath, nerves stretched tight, waiting for the climax. A victorious smile had already appeared on Jane's face. A few seconds later, the smug look on Bruno's face suddenly froze. What? Chapter 4. All the color drained from his face in an instant. He gripped the phone so tightly that his knuckles turned white, his voice carrying a barely perceptible tremor. Brother Chan, what did you say? Wang. Mr. Wang. Which Mr. Wang? You, aren't you surnamed Chan? You took your mother's name. The voice on the other end of the line seemed to rise, filled with undisguised urgency and fear. Even through the phone, that intense emotion was unmistakable. Bruno staggered. He suddenly turned to look at me, his eyes filled with extreme shock, confusion, and a terror like standing at the edge of an abyss. His mouth hung open, a choking sound coming from his throat, as if an invisible hand were squeezing his neck. No, impossible. Brother Chan, you must be mistaken. He's just a... The voice on the phone abruptly turned harsh, almost shouting. Bruno's phone nearly slipped from his hand. Why yes. I understand. I'm sorry, young Master Chan, I'll handle it immediately, right away. Bruno nodded frantically into the phone, cold sweat instantly breaking out across his forehead, the back of his shirt soaked through. He hung up in a panic, looking as though he had just been pulled out of water. His face was pale as paper. When he looked at me again, it was as if he were staring at a demon crawling up from hell. Jane didn't notice anything wrong with Bruno. All she saw was that he had made a call. The other party seemed to have said something, and Bruno now looked like he'd seen a ghost. She naturally assumed it was because the other side was furious. Did you hear that? Julian, Avery, you're finished. Jane's shrill voice was filled with twisted pleasure as she pointed at Avery and me. Bruno knows young Master Santiago Chan. Who do you think you are? A live-in son-in-law and a discarded woman who got dumped. Just wait to be blacklisted. Just wait to be kicked out of City A. Julian, trash like you deserves to. Smack. An extremely loud slap exploded through the private room like a thunderclap, brutally cutting off Jane's manic rant. Everyone froze. The one who struck her was none other than Bruno himself, the same Bruno who had looked terrified just moments ago. He put all his strength into that slap. Jane was sent flying, crashing heavily into the long table stacked with alcohol. The sound of shattering glass was ear-piercing. Liquor, ice, and fruit plates rained down over her, leaving her utterly disheveled. Jane clutched her face, collapsing into the mess. Her ears rang violently, half her face swelling visibly, a trace of blood even seeping from the corner of her mouth. She was completely stunned, eyes wide as she stared in disbelief at the men who had just been protecting her. Bruno. Her voice trembled, choked with tears and overwhelming grievance. You hit me. You hit me for those two bitches. Bitches, you're the fucking bitch. Bruno Ku's eyes were bloodshot, veins bulging on his forehead as he pointed at Jane's nose and screamed, his voice warped by sheer terror and rage. You idiot. Shut up. Shut your filthy mouth. Say one more word and I'll kill you. Where was even a shred of Boss Ku's usual composure? He looked like he wanted nothing more than to strangle this stupid woman to death. It was her. She was the one who kept fanning the flames, the one who kept provoking that terrifying existence, someone he couldn't even dream of standing on equal footing with. Deathly silence filled the private room. Everyone was stunned by the sudden reversal. Those who had been sucking up to Bruno just seconds ago, eagerly waiting to see Avery and me humiliated, now stood frozen as if under a paralysis spell, not daring to even breathe. They looked at Bruno, who seemed half mad with fear, then at Jane, disheveled and tear-streaked. Then they looked at Avery and me, still standing there calmly, and felt a chill shoot from the soles of their feet straight to the tops of their heads. Had the world gone insane? Chapter 5. Just then, the heavy doors of the banquet hall were violently pushed open from the outside. A young man dressed head to toe in luxury brands, wearing a custom-tailored suit, his hair dyed blonde, almost tumbled into the room. His face was deathly pale, cold sweat covering his forehead. His eyes darted around in panic, as if he were searching for something utterly terrifying. It was the Chan family's young master Bruno had been bragging about. Santiago Chan. Bro, where are you, bro? Santiago's voice was trembling with tears, completely devoid of his usual arrogance. His gaze finally locked onto me. Like a drowning man clutching at his last lifeline, he staggered forward. Thud. Under the horrified stares of everyone present, the heir who could walk sideways in City A dropped to his knees in front of me without the slightest hesitation. The sound of his knees slamming into the floor was dull and heavy, making everyone's heart jolt. Bro, I was wrong. Bro, I really was wrong. Santiago hugged my leg tightly, tears and snot streaming down his face, his voice shaking uncontrollably. I didn't know it was you. I swear I didn't know it was you. It was that bastard with the surname Ku. Him. He used my name to show off and bully people outside. Bro, believe me, I'm not close to him at all. Really, I swear. He rambled incoherently, terrified to the extreme. As he cried and wailed, he kept shooting frantic looks at Bruno, who was completely petrified, desperately trying to dump all the blame on him. Bruno stared at Santiago kneeling on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, then at me standing there expressionless. A bone-chilling cold instantly froze his blood, his entire body stiffening. He opened his mouth, but not a single word came out. It was over. Completely over. Those two words echoed madly in his mind. The private room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. The only sounds were Santiago's suppressed sobbing and the chattering of Jane's teeth, rattling from sheer shock and terror. I lowered my head, looking at Santiago clinging to my leg, crying like a 200-pound child. My eyes showed not the slightest ripple of emotion. I didn't even bend down, just let him hold on. Santi. My voice wasn't loud, calm as if I were talking about the weather. Yet it caused the temperature in the room to drop several degrees. You've really grown up. Those simple words stabbed straight into Santiago's heart. His whole body trembled. The wailing stopped abruptly, leaving only broken, suppressed sobs. Bro. He looked up at me, his face smeared with tears and snot, eyes full of pleading. I don't object to you making friends, I said indifferently, my gaze slowly sweeping over Bruno's bloodless face and the crowd behind him, who were trembling in silence. But keep your eyes open. Not every piece of trash is worthy of calling you brother. Yes, bro, you're absolutely right. Santiago nodded furiously like a pecking chicken. I was blind. When I get back, I'll delete all those trash friends, every single one of them. Bro, please calm down. Don't let this affect your health. As he spoke, he secretly glanced at my expression, seeing that I still showed no emotion. Panic surged even harder, and he hurriedly added, Bro, don't worry. I'll definitely give you an explanation for this. That coup bastard, and that crazy woman. He suddenly pointed at Jane, who was slumped on the floor, his eyes vicious. I'll make them disappear completely from City A. No, make it impossible for them to stay anywhere in the country. Jane was scared out of her wits by Santiago's fierce gaze. Like someone grabbing the last straw, she crawled over on all fours, clutching Bruno's pant leg. Bruno, say something. Bruno, tell him you know people from the Chan family. Tell him, we're not afraid of him. Julian is just a useless coward. He's acting. He must have hired actors with money. Right, Bruno, say something. The woman had fallen into a state of manic delusion, utterly refusing to accept the reality shattering her worldview. She would rather believe this was all an elaborate scam orchestrated by Julian, a vicious trap aimed at her. Bruno was shaken by her grip, his eyes hollow, lips trembling, yet he couldn't utter a single word. He looked at Santiago kneeling on the ground, at the undisguised fear and reverence in Santiago's eyes when he looked at me. The very last shred of hope completely collapsed. Actors. I let out a soft scoff. The sound echoed clearly, and painfully, in the deathly silent room. I lowered my head, looking at Santiago kneeling at my feet, a hint of amusement in my tone. Santi, she says you're an actor. Chapter 6. Santiago jerked his head up, the look he shot at Jane instantly turning vicious, as if he wanted to tear her apart alive. Bullshit. He cursed loudly, with not a trace left of the refined demeanor expected of a Chan family young master. You're the fucking actor. Your whole damn family are actors. Open your dog eyes and look clearly. I, Santiago, have never changed my name. Do I need to act? Who the hell do you think you are? Questioning my brother. He struggled as if to stand up, looking like he was about to rush over and kick Jane twice. Kneel. I said the word lightly. The knee Santiago had just lifted slammed straight back onto the floor. He immediately behaved himself, not daring to move an inch. Only then did I shift my gaze to Jane, whose face had turned ashen. My eyes were calm and flat, as if I were looking at a complete stranger. No, impossible. Jane finally found her voice again, broken, trembling, filled with sobs and last-ditch denial. How could he? He was clearly just a useless live-in son-in-law who revolved around you every day. I spoke slowly, my voice even, yet every word pierced like an ice spike straight into everyone's heart. I took a step forward, my gaze landing on Jane's face, twisted by extreme shock and fear. 3 years of endurance, 3 years of giving, public humiliation, all of it condensed into the deepest, coldest frost in my eyes. Jane. My voice wasn't loud, but it clearly overpowered every sharp intake of breath in the room. 3 years ago, when your family's business chain broke and you were on the verge of bankruptcy, who do you think injected the capital that saved it? When your father begged everywhere and couldn't find a single door to knock on, who do you think signed off on that deal? Back in college, I fell in love with Jane at first sight, the girl who fed stray cats under an umbrella on rainy days. And so, for her sake, I went to great lengths to find her family and hid my true identity. Jane's body began to shake violently, her eyes filling with devastating despair. She remembered now. 3 years ago, her father had suddenly received a mysterious investment that resolved their crisis. The only condition was simple: she had to marry a man named Julian. At the time, she had thought her father was selling his daughter for money. She despised and loathed the husband who had appeared out of nowhere. And all these years, those case resources that made you famous overnight, did you really think it was just luck? Or that Bruno helped pull strings for you? My gaze swept briefly over Bruno, whose face had gone deathly pale. He shuddered and immediately lowered his head, not daring to meet my eyes. Those cases, those resources you could never get no matter how hard you tried, who do you think was filtering them and paving the way behind the scenes? You really believed that idiot of a sworn brother had that kind of ability? My eyes locked back onto Jane, carrying a trace of cruel mockery. And finally, do you really think that with that pig brain of yours, you could have managed Moo Group and your law firm properly? Each sentence was like a heavy hammer, smashing mercilessly into Jane's heart. She stood unsteady, her face white as paper, her lips bitten until they bled, yet she couldn't refute a single word. Everything she had deliberately ignored, everything she had credited to her own talent, was now brutally stripped of its disguise, revealing the cold, ruthless truth beneath. Every bit of glory and comfort she had enjoyed came from the very men she had trampled on and humiliated at will. No, that's not true, you're lying to me. Jane collapsed. She screamed hysterically, tears pouring out, mixed with snot and saliva, her makeup smeared into a mess, leaving her utterly pathetic, like someone clutching at the last straw. She suddenly pointed at Avery. It's her, it has to be her. She seduced you, she got dumped and couldn't stand it. She was jealous that I was going to marry you. She set me up on purpose, right? Julian, tell me, isn't it this bitch? Smack. Another sharp slap rang out. This time, it was me. The force sent Jane straight to the floor. She clutched her face, sprawled there with her hair in disarray, like a dog whose spine had been broken, reduced to nothing but painful whimpers and eyes full of disbelief and despair. I looked down at her from above, my gaze icy, devoid of any warmth. This slap is for Avery. Your mouth is filthy, Jane. The thing I regret most now is hurting Avery's heart for the sake of a woman like you. There was no hatred in my eyes, no resentment, only a vast, frozen indifference. What's between us should end here. I raised my other hand. Shadow, who had been standing quietly in the corner, immediately stepped forward, took a neatly folded document from an expensive handbag, and respectfully handed it to me with both hands. I took it without even glancing at it and flicked my wrist. Whoosh, like a verdict. The document drifted down lightly onto the wrecked floor in front of Jane. Black words on white paper. The title was blindingly clear. Notice of termination of engagement. Chapter 7. Sign it. My voice carried no emotion at all, as if I were handling an entirely irrelevant piece of business. Leave with nothing. All cooperation under the Han Group's name that involves the Chan family, or any Chan family subsidiaries, will be terminated immediately. Every word I spoke, every clause I emphasized, made Jane's body tremble violently, her face growing paler by the second. After all, I paused, the corner of my lips lifting into an extremely faint, yet bone-chilling, arc. I, Julian, am just a useless man living off his wife, a pathetic live-in son-in-law. Any project cooperating with my Chan family must feel like a stain to you, something utterly disgusting, right? And no, that's not it. Julian, listen to my explanation. Jane stared at the termination agreement on the floor as if it were the most terrifying thing in the world. She shook her head desperately, tears mixed with spilled alcohol streaming down her face in utter misery. I only said those things out of anger. I was misled by Bruno. It was him. All him. He kept pestering me. I still love you the most, Julian. 3 years, we've been together for 3 years. You can't do this to me. She struggled to crawl forward, trying to grab my pant leg, but 2 security guards who had finally snapped out of it pinned her down firmly. 3 years together. It was as if I had heard the biggest joke imaginable. The frost in my eyes deepened. In these 3 years, did you ever treat me like a human being? Sign it, and we're even. From then on, you walk your broad, sunny road, I'll walk my narrow bridge. Otherwise, I bent slightly closer, my voice lowered, but laced with a spine-chilling coldness. I don't mind letting you experience for yourself what a real blacklist looks like, what it truly means to get out of City A. Jane's entire body jolted violently. Her pupils dilated from sheer terror. She stared at the familiar yet utterly strange face before her. The coldness and decisiveness in my eyes left her with no doubt. If she dared say even one word of refusal, this man would absolutely do what he said. He would destroy her, completely. My gaze shifted to Santiago, who was still kneeling on the floor, not daring to breathe too loudly. Santiago, bro, I'm here. Santiago snapped to attention and answered immediately. That trillion-yuan suburban project you're doing with the Ku family. I said calmly, as if issuing the most trivial instruction. Shut it down. Ah. Santiago froze for a split second, then reacted instantly. Shut it down, immediately, bro. Don't worry, I'll make the call right now. All funds frozen at once, all related personnel cleared out. I'll make sure it rots all the way through. That suburban project was Bruno Ku's 3-year effort, the one he had poured all of the Ku family's liquid assets into. His last hope of breaking into City A's top-tier elite. Bruno's vision went black. He could no longer hold himself up. With a dull thud, He collapsed straight onto the floor, eyes vacant, completely drained of all light. It was over. All of it was over. His career, his ambition, everything. Jane was struck as if by 5 consecutive bolts of lightning, her mind going completely blank. Under Bruno's persuasion, she had also invested all of her family's liquid funds into that very project. And one more thing. My gaze swept across the people in the private room, those who had been shouting alongside Bruno and Jane earlier, and who now wished they could crawl into the cracks of the floor. My voice wasn't loud, yet it reached every single ear clearly. Everyone present tonight, every last one of you. All their hearts shot straight up into their throats as they stared at me in terror. From this moment on, the Chan group will never cooperate with you again. A light, almost casual sentence. Yet it was the coldest possible verdict. A wave of suppressed, desperate gasps filled the room. For these rich young men of City A, people who relied on currying favor with Bruno and Jane just to get scraps, this was nothing short of having their lifeline severed completely. Bro, understood. Santiago answered immediately, his gaze vicious as it swept over the deathly pale crowd. I'll write down every name right now, won't miss a single one. Anyone who dares work with them is declaring war on the Chan family. After dealing with these trivial matters, I cast one final glance at Jane, collapsed on the floor like soulless mud, and at Bruno beside her, equally limp, eyes empty. The very last ripple in my heart finally settled. 3 years of giving, 3 years of endurance, all of it had amounted to nothing more than a complete farce. Not worth it. I withdrew my gaze, no longer looking at the mess and ugliness strewn across the floor. Then, I turned to look at Avery standing beside me. Chapter 8. She was still standing there quietly, a faint blush lingering on her cheeks. Those clear eyes looked at me steadily. There was no shock, no fear, only an almost gentle, absolute trust. I held out my hand to her. She barely hesitated, lightly placing her hand into my palm, holding her hand. Under countless complicated gazes, I turned around and walked out of that suffocating private room without looking back. Sister May and a group of black-clad bodyguards immediately followed in silence, like the most loyal guards, surrounding the two of us as they parted the crowd and headed toward the door. Bro, wait for me. Santiago scrambled to his feet, trying to chase after us. Kneel for 1 hour. I didn't turn around, only tossed out a calm sentence. Think carefully about what kind of friends you should make in the future. Santiago froze on the spot, staring at the backs of Avery and me as we walked away hand in hand. He looked like he was about to cry, yet didn't dare utter a single sound, obediently dropping back down to kneel again. The corridor lights were soft, the air fresh. I held Avery's hand and walked steadily toward the elevator. Julian, Avery spoke softly, her voice carrying a barely perceptible tremor. I turned to look at her. She tilted her face up. The light cast a small shadow beneath her long lashes. Her cheeks still flushed. What she did to you just now, was all of that true? She asked, her bright eyes filled with concern and careful worry. I stopped and looked into her clear eyes, where my reflection was plainly visible. I raised my hand and gently wiped away the faint moisture lingering at the corner of her eye, whether from worry earlier or something else. It's true, I said quietly, my voice softer than I realized, but it's all in the past now. She blinked, her long lashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Then the corners of her lips slowly curved upward, blooming into a pure, radiant smile. She tightened her grip on my hand instead. The elevator reached the underground parking garage. As the doors opened, a cool breeze rushed toward us. My driver had already parked the car at the spot closest to the elevator, a black Rolls-Royce Cullinan, its body reflecting a restrained, steely sheen under the lights. The driver respectfully opened the door. I shielded Avery's head and let her get in first. Just as I bent down to get into the car myself, hurried, chaotic high-heel footsteps clattered behind us, accompanied by a woman's hoarse, desperate cries. Julian, wait, listen to me, Julian. It was Jane. Her hair was in disarray, her makeup smeared by tears, the swollen imprint of a slap clearly visible on her cheek. She stumbled toward us, utterly miserable, with none of the lofty arrogance she'd displayed in the banquet hall earlier. She lunged to the side of the car, both hands clutching the half-open door. Tears and snot covered her face, her eyes filled with frantic regret and pleading. Julian, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I was possessed. I was blind. Forgive me this once, just this once. I swear. I'll listen to you about everything from now on. I'll never dare again. Let's not break up. Okay, please. For the sake of our 3 years together. Her voice was sharp and shrill, echoing through the empty parking garage. I sat inside the car, looking expressionlessly at that tear-streaked, desperate face outside the window. Chapter 9. Once, this face had smiled at me too, though even then, that smile had been mixed with far too many other things. 3 years of love, like a carefully woven illusion, shattered completely at this moment, revealing the cold and ugly truth beneath. Our time together. I spoke slowly through the car window. My voice was icy, devoid of the slightest warmth. Jane, from the moment you kissed Bruno tonight, what's left between us is nothing but a debtor-creditor relationship. Her body trembled violently. The fingers gripping the car door turned white from the force, knuckles jutting out. The termination agreement. I continued, my tone as casual as if I were commenting on the weather. Remember to sign it. My lawyer will go to your family tomorrow to collect it. What's rightfully yours. You won't lose a cent. What isn't, don't even think about touching it. No, I won't sign it. I'd rather die than sign it. Jane screamed, shaking her head frantically. Julian, you can't be this heartless. I know you still love me. You're just angry, right? Hit me, yell at me. As long as you calm down, I'll accept anything. Don't break up with me. Please, don't leave me. She cried hysterically, trying to shove her head into the car. I frowned slightly and spoke calmly to the driver in front. Drive. Yes, sir. The driver didn't hesitate and started the car. The engine let out a low growl as the vehicle slowly moved forward. No, don't go. Julian. Julian. Jane stumbled as she was dragged along for a step or two, forced to release her grip on the door. She chased after the car unsteadily before collapsing onto the ground, watching helplessly as the black taillight sped away and vanished around the parking garage corner. Her heart-rending cries were sealed off, no longer audible. 9 months later, at a banquet jointly hosted by the Chan Group and the Mu Group, Avery Mu and I officially announced our re-engagement. The banquet was held at the Chan family estate, with prominent figures from all walks of life in attendance. When I appeared hand in hand with Avery, the entire hall erupted into warm applause. Nervous? I asked her softly. Avery smiled and shook her head, tightening her grip on my hand. With you here, I'm not. Halfway through the banquet, the butler approached quietly and whispered in my ear. Young master, someone outside wishes to see you. They say they're your old acquaintance. I frowned slightly, signaled to Avery, and followed the butler to the side gate of the estate. Standing outside was Jane. She looked far more haggard than the last time I'd seen her. The once radiant face was now dull and worn, and she was no longer dressed in designer clothes. Julian, the moment she saw me, tears welled up in her eyes. Please. I'm truly at a dead end. My family has gone bankrupt. My father is hospitalized. I looked at her calmly. Jane, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. No. She suddenly dropped to her knees and grabbed my pant leg. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please give me one more chance, even if I can only be your lover. I took a step back, shaking her off without sparing her even a glance. Julian. She cried out, unwilling to give up. You loved me so much once. How could you forget just like that? What's so special about Avery? She only cares about your family background. You know how much I once loved you. I gave up everything for you. And what about you? I let out a soft scoff and turned to leave. Julian. Jane screamed behind me. You'll regret this. Your Chan family. Jane. A cool, clear voice interrupted her. Avery had appeared beside me without my noticing. She naturally linked her arm through mine. Watch your words. Defaming the Chan family is not a consequence you can afford. Jane stared at our intimate posture, jealousy and resentment practically spilling out of her eyes. Avery, don't get smug. Do you think he'll love you forever? Security. I had no interest in listening to any more of her ravings and directly summoned the estate guards. Watching Jane being dragged away, Avery let out a soft sigh. Pitiful people always have something hateful about them. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Let's not talk about her anymore. Let's go back. The guests are still waiting. Avery nodded and leaned against my shoulder. All right. After the banquet, Avery and I stood on the terrace of the estate, gazing up at a sky full of stars. What are you thinking about? She asked. I held her hand. Our future. Avery smiled. Our future will be wonderful. Of course. I kissed her fingers lightly. Because you're in it. The night breeze brushed past us, carrying the scent of flowers. On this starlit night, I knew my life had finally returned to the right path. Together with the person truly worth loving.